So Bo Winkler has spent many years in the classroom as a teacher focused on science education. As an independent consultant, she's trained in various programs focused on the new Michigan science standards, including NGSX, 5 tools and processes for NGSS, phenomenal science, and 3-dimensional science performance assessment. Tonight she's here to share with us the importance of communication in the NGSS classroom. Please welcome Bo Winkler.
Good evening. I'm Bo Winkler. I am an independent science consultant and I teach part-time with adult education students. So I'm wondering what it is that brought you here tonight. Are you hoping that you're going to find something that's relevant? Something that you might be wondering about yet with NGSS? So a couple weeks ago, I was sitting in traffic and suddenly there was this huge flock of birds. They were everywhere. They were lining the tree branches. They were on the rooftops. They were everywhere. There were hundreds and hundreds of birds just flying and flying. And it made me pause. I wondered, what's going on? Why are there so many birds in this one place? What are they doing here? And I wondered, are other people wondering what I wonder as well? What kind of communication happens between those birds that helps them to come to this place? And what kind of communication might be going on among those birds while they're there? That unexpected event made me really think and question. And there were lots of whys. And you might be wondering how this relates to what we're going to be talking about tonight's topic. So I'd like to share with you a bit about what I've been learning in working with adult education students, as well as working with teachers who are becoming more and more familiar with NGSS. Excuse me. In my adult education classes, I have students who have not yet figured out what it is that they need to do to become successful in gaining their graduation and certificates so that they've accomplished and completed high school. They've been postponing that. They all have reasons for it, all have their own story. But when you talk to them and when you listen to the research, we know that it all is about the same theme that we've been hearing a lot about today, and that is they are not finding the relevance. It's not relevant. They can't make those connections to their real world. And when we think about the research that there is as well, that's talking about how we deal with adult learners, whether those are teachers or other professionals, we know that that also is a big topic. We need to make sure that whatever we are presenting, whatever we're talking about, we help those teachers find the relevance. We help them find the connections to their real world and what's really important to them. So my question is, why? We've been hearing that a lot tonight. Why do we expect the successful teaching of K-12 students to be any different? Why do we expect the successful teaching of K-12 students to be any different? Typically, when students start their formal education, they come in with tons of wonderings and whys. They want to know why. There's tons of those questions. And then it comes a certain point that they stop asking. There's a point at which they forget, and we no longer hear that natural curiosity and that wonderment coming from them. And I'm wondering now why it is that that particular wondering and why seems to collapse. So my wondering is, why do they quit asking why? Student wondering seemed to shift from why about the things that they're curious about to why am I here? Why do I need to learn this? Why does this matter when it's not relevant for me? Why do we shut down the whys? Why did we shut down the wonderings? Maybe it's because we have too much to do. Maybe it's because we don't know the answers to those whys. Maybe it's because when we think about the wonderings and what is expected of us and those people those students that we're working with, that we're expecting recited facts that they are expected and we are expecting to answer for them. As we think about making connections and finding relevance in student learning, we need to realize there's more to learn than what we can get from a book. More to learn than what we can get from a book. So when we are asking students to learn what we need them to learn and make those connections to what they know and want to know, we can't get those answers from a book. There's more to learn than what we get from a book. Those wonderings and whys, we need to go beyond what we can get from a book. And the deepening and reinforcing of knowledge and understandings is not solid without effective communication. I think that authentic implementation of NGSS supports finding the relevance, encourages making the connections, and is dependent upon effective communication. And I'm convinced that NGSS provides fertile ground to keep the wonder and the why in our classrooms and active in the thinking process of our students. NGSS provides and guides students in learning that process different from what the other standards we've experienced before or what we've expected in our classrooms in the past. NGSS encourages and requires effective communication. It's necessary for students to find the connections to their real world and what they find relevant. Students need opportunities, however, to help them express that wonder and that why. And in order to do so, it's critical that we help guide them in effective communication. Two important tools that I've used to help foster effective communication are interactive notebooking, which helps to provide an organized system for students to document their understandings and provides a great opportunity as a means of formative assessment for teachers. Perhaps my greatest revelation in working with both teachers and students is the effectiveness included in talk moves, both formal and informal discussions. Talk moves, using the prompts and the techniques of talk moves, helps teachers to dig deeper into student thinking, uncovering details. It helps students to identify real-world connections, affirm their ideas and understandings, and uncover the misconceptions and misunderstandings that might be there, interfering with their knowledge building. So in my classroom, we were talking about Mendeleev and the periodic table, and during that conversation, one student said, "Hey, yeah, wasn't Morgan Freeman that guy that played him in that movie?" Had we not been using effective communication, we never would have really uncovered the fact that he was thinking of Nelson Mandela, another pretty important guy in our world. And I wonder what would have happened with that student's thinking had we not uncovered that really simple misunderstanding. So how critical is effective communication in education and beyond? It's at the crux of every learning opportunity, whether that's formal or informal. Here's a short story that might help us to understand. So in my teaching career, many years, the students came to me from across the street. The building that they were in was across the street, and they would come to my classroom. And in 4th grade that year, we were talking about body systems. And when we were talking about different kinds of things in the classroom, I would often try to relate to the real world. I included a lot of things about my dad, and one of the facts at that particular point was my dad was diabetic. My dad lost his foot and was getting a prosthesis. I tried to use those sorts of real world things, or at least they were from my real world, to help make connections for students. So on the way to class that Friday, with a colleague of mine who was escorting students to my classroom, one of the students was really excited. And she was so excited because when she got to science that day, we were going to be watching a movie. Oh. The teacher, my colleague, was engaged in conversation with that student and asked, so what's the movie going to be about? It's about Mrs. Winkler's dad and his prostitute. Prostitute, pacemaker, prosthesis. Effective communication really matters. I wonder if those of us who are familiar with talk moves might have tried some question like, could you tell me a little bit more about what you mean by prostitute? Or I think I hear you saying. So, yeah, effective communication. It's important, it's critical, and there's more to learn than what we get from a book. So as you move forward with NGSS in your real world, you might dig deeper into retaining the wonder and the why. Thank you.